a cop, a police officer in the state of Georgia, has admitted to raping a woman while in uniform at gunpoint in front of her friend. Put up the picture of this sick SOB. The city that hired him was well aware of his background with sexual assault. I have the proof. The cop you are looking at is now going to face roughly 25 years in prison. He admitted, this ex-Lithonia police officer who had a prior sexual assault allegation while with the Atlanta Police Department in Georgia, pleaded guilty to raping a woman during a 2019 traffic stop. That's according to the DeKalb County's district attorney's office, all right? Let's put up the picture of his mugshot. His name is David Wilborn. David Willborn, once again, history of sexual assault and a history of cover-up from other police departments. I have to warn you about this story because what you are about to hear is one of the most egregious violations that you have heard probably in a very long time. The DeKalb DA Sherry Boston said in a release on Friday that 45-year-old David Wilborn pleaded guilty to charges including rape, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and more. In September of 2019, this is your background, this cop, according to the DA's office, made a stop in DeKalb County, Georgia by blocking a car with his patrol vehicle and first took the driver out and ordered him on the ground, okay? Let me show you a picture of the woman who prosecuted this case. Sherry Boston is the DA of DeKalb County. There's more. After asking for the passenger's ID, he ordered her to walk to the back of the vehicle where he then brandished his weapon before raping her. That's according to the DA. So he pulls over a car by blocking it. He takes out the male driver and then tells the female passenger to go to the other side, and he proceeds to rape her. You will learn he raped her at gunpoint. There's more. Officer Wilborn also told the victim to repeat, and I quote, "Nothing happened, nothing happened, nothing happened," according to the DA's office. The officer then told the victim's friend he could get up off the ground and allowed them both to get back into the car and leave. The release from the DA's office said, the victim immediately called the police after arriving home, described the unknown police officer to law enforcement. Now I want to remind you, this got reported, okay? He literally pulled someone over, raped an individual in front of somebody and went back to work. He was in full uniform, pulled out his gun, raped the woman, put her back in the car, told them to leave, went back to work. Do you think that was his first time doing this? Do you think this was the only time he had engaged in such a criminal matter? An investigation then identified Wilborn as the officer who committed the assault following his guilty plea, which just happened. Wilborn was sentenced to a term of life in prison to serve 25 years without parole. That's because the DA decided not to give in to the plea deal. With the balance on probation, he must also register as a sex offender if he's ever released alive. Officer Wilborn was previously a cop, okay? So I'm gonna give you background to his long history. He was a cop with the city of Atlanta, but he resigned in 2007. Why? Because of an allegation of sexual assault. He was never charged. 11 Alive News reported in 2019 that Wilborn had been with APD from 2006 and 2008, and then in 2007 he was accused of going to a sex store while on duty and asking a worker to have sex with him. The file stated he asked the worker to show him her breast and that he rubbed her thigh and funded himself. After that, the cop was placed on administrative leave and resigned. All right, he was reported. Then there's another one, post-certification. His post-certification, this is what allows you to be a cop, was suspended from 2008 to 2010. This guy could not legally be a cop between 2008 to 2010. Once again, never charged with a crime. He was suspended from post. Then they followed up with a 24-month probationary period. You have a 2-year suspension and then a 2-year probationary period that then expired. He was never charged in the 2007 incident. Once his expiration happened, he was able to then apply to be a cop again. So he goes to the city of Lithonia. City of Lithonia, a metropolitan city not too far from Atlanta, decided to hire him. They hired him knowing the background. It was part of a summary report. Post-certification had the record and the city had the record as well. They decided to bypass the reality of his background in order to hire him to be a cop. Let's put up the picture of the now interim police chief of the city of Lithonia. Donald Dejarnet is the current chief. He's the interim there. Now, let me say this. This is proof positive about the rape culture, not only in this country, but the rape culture that permeates in the industry of policing. This man had credible allegations against him, multiple investigations from other departments. He admitted to some of this on the record during those IA internal affairs investigations. He was later suspended, put on probation, never charged, and allowed, even with the summary on his record, allowed to become a cop again. And what happens? He pulls over a driver in the city of Lithonia. He proceeds to rape the passenger at gunpoint in his uniform at a park. The city who hired him is also responsible for the victims. And I say victims intentionally because I do not believe this was the only one. This is the one who decided to report. Now he's going to prison. And now those in the city and others are saying, well, justice was served. We got rid of a bad one. Well, you're the reason the bad one even had a job again. At this point, I am encouraging the victims not only to come forward, but to file litigation against the city government who continue to ignore the reality of his criminal conduct, because they are responsible as well. All right, we're gonna continue to follow this story. I do not think it ends with his sentence. Jackson, thoughts on this?
Yeah, so my initial thoughts are one of the common themes that you see in cases like this is people have some type of a background where they commit these acts, whether it be sexual crimes or acts of violence, whether that be domestic acts in the home or that be on the streets. You see that people often commit these types of things repetitively. So, if we were to pass simple measures in our law enforcement just to make sure that people like this don't get rehired, the amount of people who get killed on the job would drastically go down. And then the incidences like this would drastically go down if we just, made sure that people like this couldn't be rehired. But again, as you pointed out, it's a lot to do with the culture that exists within the institutions, because if they actually were to hold themselves to account, then they would have to set that precedent and actually not let these people back on. Yep. So, again, simple measures really, really could go a long way. And I think this is a good example of that. Very
well said. And I would like to make sure we always add this for the record. the George Floyd Policing and Accountability Act, if it were law today, it would be a database publicly available for you and I to look up any cop in the United States of America and find their background. They don't want that. That's what they want to avoid. They want to know your background, but they don't want you to know theirs. So that's why we have to fight for continued transparency, not only in law enforcement, but government in general. All right.